Hello, everyone. So today's topic is the fight between IT and procurement during a procurement transformation. So a brief background on the storyline. So we have two types of procurement organizations. One which procurement transformations. I'm sorry, during a transformation where the IT has a stronghold during the transformation activity, or procurement is a stronghold. So this is where I see the major conflicts that happen during a procurement transformation. Now, before jumping onto the story, I'd like to introduce you to my characters. So, my first character is Abu. He's from procurement. Say hi to Abu. And then my second character is Jaggu. He's from the IT team. So, let's start off with our first story. Our first story is building an RFP and running an RFP and selecting a vendor or a solution that needs to be deployed. So Abu sees Jaggu and he says, "Hey Jaggu, I heard that you are deploying you are trying to run an RFP which would be deployed to my organization." So Jaggu from IT says, "Yeah, we got it all under control. I've got the RFP almost built and ready to release it." So Jaggu ends up saying, "Hey, that's good, but have you considered which softwares have you considered for deployment?" And Jaggu ends up saying, "Hey, I'm good. We've already decided on what potentially software could be. So we have this wonderful ERP that we've been using for years, and there's a nice software that comes along with that ERP provider. So we intend to take that particular software." And then Abu from procurement ends up saying, "Well, I used that software in my previous organization. I didn't like it much, and I'm not sure if it would work out in my organization or this organization as such." And there ends the conversation. So, as an outcome of this story, what I'd like to tell you is you don't necessarily need to pick the software that relates to your ERP, or you have a particular software range within your organization. You don't necessarily need to go that route. Maybe there is a good reason to do it as well. But that should not be a constraint for you, because in today's world, we have a lot of APIs and integration scenarios that go with many softwares. So you don't need to be restricted by that. So let's get to scene 2. Scene 2, we have Jaggu, who's on the not so stronger side, and we have Abu, who's running the RFP. So Jaggu meets Abu, and just like how Abu asked previously, he says, "Hey, Abu, I heard that you're running an RFP of buying a new software." Yes, we have it all covered. So we are running the RFP, and we have all the business requirement documents and all of it in place. I'll pull you in whenever I need to during the RFP process. And Jaggu ends up asking, so have you considered the different integration scenarios that are required to integrate both the ERP and the software? There ends the conversation. So now here's another important learning from this conversation is you definitely need to involve both the teams during an RFP. It could not be one way or the other. It's key to have the business requirement document. Even when the IT is running the RFP, if it's IT centric, they need to involve procurement and not just pick up the business requirement document that's existent or the current process to run the RFP as such. Procurement also needs to validate it, because maybe the BRD is an old one or your current process is an old one. So that's one area. And another piece is even for the procurement guy, if you are running the RFP, you're owning it to a large extent, it's important that you need to understand the nitty-gritties of the IT side, whether the ERP is compatible with the new software. Is there a release? If your current ERP is to the latest version, which is compatible or not? Do you need a server? So a lot of these things eat up a lot of money and time during a deployment, because I've seen at least 2 in my 12-year career where the deployment stopped because they didn't have a server ready for. So that's the extent of magnitude of issue, and then it gets very critical. Your licensing cost goes up because you already started paying the software provider, but you don't have a server, and you have a big process to procure the server as such. So these are my 2 stories. during the RFP process as such. Now, I can tell you a million other pieces, but let's go to the next story. So our next story is what happens during the deployment as such. So we have, again, our loving characters. We have Abu speaking to Jagu, Abu from procurement and Jagu out here. So Abu meets Jagu and says, "Hey Jagu, I hardly can make any customization. Your system is not at all customizable. It's very stringent. I don't think it's worth the selection that we did." And Jagu ends up saying, "Hey Abu, you can't customize the hell out of the software." And that's the conversation that happens. So what do we learn from this? You don't go into a deployment, try to just transfer your current paper-based process to online. So you definitely need to look at the aspects of what could be adapted and what is the best practice as such. Now let's get to the other story where we see. So we had procurement in the back foot. Let's see IT and procurement now. So we have scene 2 of story 2. So Jagu meets Abu and he says, "Hey Abu, I will not allow anything apart from the best practices. So you need to accept the best practice, else I will not support you on this project." Abu ends up replying to Jagu saying that Abu from procurement, Abu ends up saying to Jagu, but we are not really mature as an organization to accept all the best practices. I don't think even if we implement them, we'll be able to use them well. So this is our second scene during the deployment. So the moral of the story out here is you cannot bash on with the best practices regardless of whatever the software is providing you or the industry best practices. Neither can you customize the system to an extent that it cannot be improvised in the future. So there needs to be a right mix, and you have to validate your current design, your current process, and what are the regulatory requirements, or if there's any audit gaps that you had from your previous auditing year, those needs to be plugged in as a part of the design and how you want to implement the process. So it should be the right mix of both. I would definitely suggest the procurement guys to try and adapt to whatever best practices that are given, but you don't necessarily need to accept all the best practices just for the heck of it. And even the IT folks also need to understand that there should be some room for customization as opposed to not allowing any customization. So that's where I see the right amount of mix of these two helps the procurement transformation to go smoothly and also get the best benefits out of the system. Now we finished with story 2 and let's get to story 3. So story 3 is after the procurement transformation, after the deployment is done. So the first scenario we have is where we have Abu and Jagu as usual. Jagu from IT, Abu from procurement. So Jagu meets up Abu and says, hey Abu, we are about to leave you. We're done with the hypercare period. Now it's you who's going to manage the system and start using it. Abu says, "Oh, really? I didn't know that we are out of hypercare. We really didn't even put in one transaction so far, so I'm not sure what's going to happen after you leave." So that's our first scene from story 2. So exiting hypercare is a key critical thing. It's not just a 1 week or 1 month period that you're waiting for and then you leave everything and go. So hypercare is as critical as the deployment or the design period. It's key that you ensure that you have some transactions, you use the system in production, see how the feedback is from the users. And for IT as well, from the IT side as well, it should not be just a way of washing away your hands. For procurement as well, you don't just sit after a deployment is done. So you should be eager to put in the first transaction and put in a couple of transactions out here, and that's key. Now, the second scene of our third story is Uh, we have again IT and procurement, Jagu from IT, Abu from procurement. So Abu meets up Jagu and says, "Hey Jagu, what about our support now? Are you going to support us?" And Abu ends up saying, Abu meets Jagu and he says this, and Jagu replies to Abu saying, "Hey Abu, we are only helping you until now. This software is not like an ERP. You need to manage your stuff. We don't need to involve, and the cost relating to support should be taken care by you." So that's our scene two. And out here, you see a basic disconnect out here. There's no segregation of duties of who will handle what after the deployment. Do you have the resources who are capable of managing the support issues? And did procurement take the owner's stuff? Or did IT take the owner's stuff? Have they hired someone, or they have the supported the vendor? So this all needs to be planned out. If it's not planned out, there's whatever you deploy, it's going to end up in fights, because after the deployment, people keep pointing fingers at each other, saying that was your mistake, I was not involved, or this was my mistake. I'm sorry. No one ends up saying that. So it's key that you plan the overall structure right at the beginning, and also your support period and support costs and things like that. If you have a lot of the softwares could be managed to a large extent by the procurement folks itself, because that's how it's easy to manage this, the procurement configurations and things like that. That's how easy the software is. Maybe a few things that are very technical, like the integration and those aspects, could be done by the IT team. But it depends how you want to do it. If you have a large procurement team, maybe you could afford to do that. If you have a very teeny-weeny procurement team, maybe you want the IT teams to help you with this stuff. One other key thing that I've seen out here, even during the procurement transformation itself, it's good to identify a change defaulters right at the beginning and try to fix them and bring them on board and see what are the areas that are pricking them and try to fix them. So we always talk about change enablers. I want to consider change defaulters. These are guys who mess up a lot and bring about a lot of conflict during the procurement transformation. Another good way of managing this stuff is basically having, maybe on the procurement side, somebody who's very technical or has a technology degree, or someone who manages the IT category is very familiar with technology, to be like kind of the liaison between IT and procurement and the vendor on the procurement side. On the IT side, it's good to have someone who's been dealing with procurement for a while, maybe with the ERP, or they understand the business process on the procurement side on the side, along with their IT skill set. So this is a right mix to have a nice procurement transformation. Now, before we end this video, I'd like to sincerely ask you, don't fight like Abu and Jagu, okay? And rather, the only way to have a successful procurement transformation is for Abu and Jagu to work together like this, okay? So hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching me. See you next week. Bye-bye.